But let's get into what sort of the key topic I wanted to have you on the show to talk about is today, which is, I think, well exampled by a quote. You're featured in an upcoming book, How Psychedelics Will Save the World. I believe it's something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And your chapter opens up with this quote. This is a time of reawakening to ourselves and a time of reemergence in the ancient wisdoms of indigenous peoples across the globe. Currently, we are at the intersection between these ancient wisdoms and the psychedelic renaissance. So I'm wondering if you can comment on where you see this awakening and intersecting, unfolding in the psychedelic renaissance in a positive way, and perhaps even where you might see it happening in a negative way. Sir. And additionally, sometimes I ask big questions, so break it down however you like. But additionally, where you might see that it is not happening in a way that you feel problematic.
Okay, sure. I can speak to that. That part of that quote of the reawakening is really happening at two levels in my mind. It's happening at an individual level, and then it's also happening at a more collective level. In Western society, we're taught to look for answers outside of ourselves. They tell you to go to college, learn something, and those influences help us to drive our life or guide us in our journeys. And I think what ends up happening is we forget about the answers that come from here, from the heart. And I once had a traditional elder. She would always say the longest journey a human will ever make is from their mind to their heart. And that's only 18 inches, which is, and I never really understood what she meant by that, but that is a really valid comment. And so at the second level, which is really the collective level, at large, we're finding that we're intersecting a lot of different things. If you think about the geopolitical environment we are all confronted with, and all of these truths that are unfolding, which was, I believe the title of my chapter was Turning of the Soil. And just like you turn up the soil, it unearths things. And in this particular time and space that we are all find ourselves in, that's really what's happening, is we're unearthing the truths of our own individual selves. And I think, to me, that's the way that I look at the so-called COVID pandemic. Of what has happened is it's asked us to come and focus on being with ourselves again, because we don't know how to be with ourselves. And then secondary, to look outside of ourselves. And so when we do that inner healing work that we're being all asked to do, which touches on the psychedelic piece, it adds to the collective. There's a lot of issues going on around the world. And when we start to do our own work, it adds and it helps to foster healing collectively. And so, from a positive perspective, we can look at it from a personal level. For instance, with the pandemic, it was a catalyst to help us refocus on who we are. And at the core of this is really our choice, right? We got to be the ones who decide which way we're gonna go with this, and whether we want to be a part of the future solutions or not. And that goes in line with a lot of what's happening in the psychedelic space. On a collective level, it's really teaching us to challenge the status quo. And for me, what that means might be, an example would be the religious beliefs that I grew up with. I was raised as a Catholic, primarily. And as I started to learn about the dogma and the history of organized religions as an adult, that no longer resonated with me. And what resonated with me was my traditional teachings and my culture of who I was, and really bringing that back to who I was. From a negative perspective, when I think about the personal side of things, if you choose to do something that you know in your heart is the wrong thing to do, there's a consequence to that. And again, that can relate to psychedelics as well. If you're out partying on a Friday night, and then Saturday night you're going to go and take some psilocybin, something inside you tells you that's probably not the right thing to do, but you do it anyway, and you have to live with the consequences of that. And so I think, one of the things from a positive perspective is that we all are at a choice point. There's a term called choice point. We're all at this peak, if you will, of whether we're going to continue to evolve as a human species, or will we decline and be in this place for another 1,000 years. And so I think it's really incumbent upon us to really look inside of ourselves. And I always ask questions it's not about me. Yes, it is about me, but it's really not about me. I think about it in terms of what are the things and what is the world that I want to recreate for my children, my grandchildren, and my great grandchildren that I will never see in this lifetime. And when we do that, and again, this ties in with psychedelics as well, when we think about the commodification of psychedelic natural plants, it really changes your perspective and how you look at things.